The first time I saw Elise, she was standing under a stained glass skylight in Geneva, arguing with a logistics director about spinal implants. She was all sharp lines and calm fire, the kind of woman who didn't blink when challenged. I had just finished my panel on predictive analytics in aviation safety and wandered into the lobby looking for coffee. Instead, I found her. My name is Silas Wren. I'm 42 years old. I live in Zurich now, but back then I was still floating, half out of the military, half into the consulting world. My spine hadn't yet learned how to relax. I didn't know how to smile in photographs. Elise changed that, at least for a while. We met during one of those tightly scheduled dinners where half the room is angling for funding and the other half is pretending not to notice. She wasn't interested in either. She wanted to talk about brain elasticity and trauma recovery. I wanted to hear her say my name again. We married 9 months later. She left academia after that, her decision, though I didn't protest. We had Tyler 2 years later. I remember holding him for the first time, this tiny, squinting thing that somehow made everything make sense. I thought that was what people meant by purpose. In those early years, Elise was luminous. Not in the magazine cover way, but in the way that made a room hush when she entered. She organized charity events, volunteered at language centers, laughed loudly and without warning. But over time, something shifted. She stopped laughing like that, stopped looking at me in that way that made the floor feel steady beneath my feet. At first, I thought it was just the transition into motherhood, the loss of autonomy, sleepless nights. But even after Tyler started school, even after we hired help, Elise didn't come back. Not the version I'd married. She began hosting dinners that weren't really dinners. People in dark suits showed up with thin smiles and conversations full of names I didn't recognize. She learned how to drop my title like a business card. My integrity became a fixture on her mantelpiece, something polished and displayed, but no longer touched. By the time Tyler turned 7, I realized Elise had built a life parallel to mine. We lived in the same house, but she moved through it like a guest, always arriving, never staying. Tyler noticed, too. I caught him once, staring out the window after her car pulled away, asking if she was mad at him. "No, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "She's just busy." But that wasn't it. She was becoming a stranger. The distance was no longer subtle. She'd gone from sharing her days to summarizing them in vague headlines. "It went fine," or "nothing worth repeating." Then there were the disappearances. Not long ones, an afternoon here, a weekend there. But they came with no warning, and always some excuse that didn't quite hold. I didn't want to be paranoid, but you don't spend a decade in intelligence and forget how to read a pattern. I never confronted her directly. Not then. Partly because I didn't want to believe it. Partly because I still hoped she'd find her way back. But I started noticing things. Whispered phone calls, deleted calendars. The way she stopped meeting my eye when she said she loved me. I kept telling myself, she wouldn't do this. Not Elise. Not the woman who stood by me when I walked away from 20 years of covert work and built a new life out of ashes. Not the mother of my son. But instinct is a funny thing. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need proof. It just hums in your bones until you can't ignore it anymore. And by the time the accident happened, the one that nearly took Tyler from us, I had already started to wonder whether Elise was ever really on our side at all. I was in Dubai, halfway through a risk mitigation presentation for Gulf Air when my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. Clients don't appreciate interruptions, especially not when they're paying 5 figures a day for expertise. But it buzzed again, then again. Something in my gut tightened. When I finally glanced down, there were 3 missed calls from Zurich, 2 from the hospital, 1 from a number I didn't recognize. The text came next. "Mr. Wren, your son Tyler has been admitted to the ICU. Please contact us immediately." Everything else stopped. I don't remember finishing the presentation. I don't remember the car to the airport or even the flight home. I just remember the sound of my pulse in my ears and the image of Tyler's face burned into my mind. His crooked smile, the way he dragged his stuffed dinosaur everywhere, the soft way he still whispered "Dad" when he had nightmares. I landed in Zurich just before dawn. The roads were slick with rain, the kind that made everything feel slower. By the time I reached the hospital, Tyler had already been in surgery. A nurse met me at the ICU entrance, calm but clipped, the kind of professional polish that told me things weren't good. "He's stable now," she said. But it was close. A jet ski. A high-speed collision at a private marina. Tyler had been walking along the dock, and someone had lost control. The impact fractured 2 ribs and punctured a lung. Internal bleeding. Unconscious before they got him into the ambulance. I stood outside the room, staring through the glass at my son's small body, half covered in wires and bandages, and felt something fracture inside me. Elise wasn't there. I had called her on the flight, left 3 voicemails, sent 2 messages. Nothing. I assumed she was already at the hospital, already with him. But when I asked the nurse, she shook her head. "You're the first parent to arrive." I stared at her. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. We confirmed your contact as primary." It was nearly 24 hours before Elise showed up. She walked into the ICU like she was late for a brunch. Fresh clothes, hair done, face impassive. When I looked at her, I expected panic. Tears. Maybe guilt. What I got was indifference. "Oh," she said, glancing at the monitors. "They said he was stable?" I stood slowly from the chair beside Tyler's bed. "Where have you been?" Her eyes flicked toward the nurse, then back to me. "I was at the retreat." "What retreat?" "The one I told you about." She smoothed her scarf. "It was a silent meditation weekend. No phones." I stared at her. "No phones," I repeated. "Our son nearly died. And you were unreachable because you were meditating?" She gave me a look like I was the unreasonable one. "I needed space, Silas. I told you I was burnt out." "From what?" I snapped. "From gala planning and wine tastings? What exactly are you recovering from?" She flinched. For a second, just a flicker, I saw something ugly in her expression. Annoyance. Not pain. Not concern. Annoyance. "He's fine now," she said stiffly. "Let's not make this about us." I almost laughed. "This isn't about us. It's about you disappearing while your son was in emergency surgery." Her eyes went cold. "I didn't ask you to come storming in like a military rescue team." I took a step closer, my voice low. "I didn't storm anywhere. I flew halfway across the world without a moment's hesitation because I'm his father. Because that's what a parent does." She looked away, jaw tightening. I didn't press it further. Not then. Tyler needed peace. He needed calm. I wasn't going to turn his recovery into a battleground. So I sat back down beside him and held his hand, while Elise stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed like a visiting dignitary. She stayed for maybe an hour, made a few vague comments to the nurse, kissed Tyler's forehead with the same warmth she might give a stranger at a formal event. Then she left. "I'll be back tomorrow," she said. "There's a donor brunch in the afternoon." After she was gone, the nurse returned to check the vitals. She gave me a quiet, sympathetic look. "Your son's lucky, Mr. Wren." I nodded. She hesitated. "We don't always see parents like you." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. That night, I sat in that hospital room long after visiting hours ended, staring at Tyler's face, listening to the soft beep of machines keeping rhythm with his breath. And for the first time since Elise had started drifting away, I let the doubt settle into something heavier. This wasn't just distance. This was something else. Something worse. Tyler had been home from the hospital for 4 days. He still moved slowly, favoring his side where the ribs hadn't fully healed, and he slept a lot. I'd converted the downstairs guest room into a recovery space. Blackout curtains, noise machine, oxygen monitor. Everything he needed. Elise had barely spent an hour with him. She came and went like she had a social schedule to maintain, which, of course, she did. I caught her once breezing through the kitchen with a clipboard in one hand and her phone in the other, muttering something about centerpiece vendors and seating arrangements. When I asked if she could watch Tyler while I took a call with a Singapore client, she blinked like I'd asked her to perform surgery. "I can't. The gala's in 2 weeks. You know how important this is." I nearly dropped the mug I was holding. "You're hosting a party while our son is recovering from internal injuries?" She waved a hand like I was being dramatic. He's not in the ICU anymore. He's fine. I clenched my jaw. He's not fine. He still has bruising on his lungs, and he's on pain medication that makes him nauseous. She didn't answer, just started tapping her phone like the conversation was over. Elise, I said, this can wait. The GALA isn't life or death. She looked up sharp now. No, Silas. What can't wait is maintaining the foundation's momentum. Do you think I can just disappear and hope donors keep throwing money at us? Donors. I stepped closer. You're worried about donors while your son can't walk up a flight of stairs without gasping? Her nostrils flared. I've worked hard for this. I built something of my own, and you'd rather I throw it all away because Tyler had a little accident. That was it? A little accident? I took a breath, steady but cold. You weren't there when it happened. You weren't there for the ambulance ride, the surgery, the surgeon's update when they said we almost lost him. Don't stand there and act like it was a scraped knee. She stared at me, lips pressed into a flat line. Then she said, if you're so desperate to be the martyr, why don't you cancel your meetings and stay home with him? In fact, maybe you should handle the GALA too. You're so good at taking over. There was no mistaking it now. That look in her eyes. Not sorrow. Not fear. Just bitterness. Not because of what had happened, but because I'd upstaged her. I'm not leaving him alone, I said. And I'm sure as hell not organizing your art foundation's fundraiser. Then you're choosing to sabotage me, says the woman who vanished during an emergency. She stepped forward, voice like ice. You want to play this game, Silas? Fine. But if you walk away from this event, don't expect things to go back to normal. I want a partner, not a watchdog. That word, partner, landed like a slap. I didn't answer. I just pulled out my phone, opened my contacts, and deleted hers. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. I'd spent too long trying to reach someone who had already walked away. Tyler deserved better. I did too. For the rest of the day, I didn't speak to her. She sent a few passive-aggressive messages. I ignored them. She tried calling from another number. I declined. Then nothing. Just silence. But it wasn't peaceful. That night, after putting Tyler to bed, I pulled up an encrypted connection on my laptop and sent a short message to someone I hadn't contacted in years. Need discreet support. Possible domestic threat vector. High priority intel on subject, Elise Wren. Background trace plus asset sweep. Loop and Jasper have connected. I stared at the blinking cursor before adding. Tyler is priority 1. Full compartmentalization. Proceed quiet. Then I hit send. That was the moment I stopped hoping. Stopped waiting. I'd built a career around identifying threats before they became disasters. I'd spent years dismantling lies at 30,000 feet. But somehow I'd missed the one right in front of me. Not anymore. From that point forward, I wasn't just a husband. I was an operative again. And Elise? She was the mission. Tyler was always quiet in the mornings, especially since the accident. But that particular Sunday, his silence felt different. He pushed the scrambled eggs around his plate, not eating, not complaining, just drifting. I was about to suggest he lie down when he looked up and said, Dad, can I tell you something? I set my coffee down slowly. Of course. He hesitated, like the words had to fight their way out. I didn't fall into the water by accident. My heart stopped. What do you mean? He rubbed his arm, the one with the fading bruise just below the elbow. It was because of the shortcut. I leaned in gently. Take your time, buddy. He nodded. I went to the marina because Mom asked me to. She said she needed her herbal pills from that shop across town. The one near the tram stop. But she didn't want to leave Uncle Jasper alone. That name had been buried deep in the back of my mind for months. A casual guest at a winter fundraiser. Someone Elise described as an old family friend. I hadn't thought much of him until now. She said they were going to have a talk. Tyler went on, eyes lowered. But when I forgot the shop name, I came back. I thought I'd just ask again. I swallowed hard. And what did you see when you came back? Tyler's voice went even quieter. They were kissing. There it was. My fingers curled against the edge of the table. She didn't see me, he added quickly. I was behind the hedge. I heard them talking too. She said something like, he's not going to suspect anything. And he laughed. Then she said, it'll be a surprise. A surprise? I repeated. He nodded. For you. That's what she said. I felt a chill crawl down my back. What happened next? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. I didn't want her to know I saw, he said. So I cut through the marina to get to the shop faster. But I didn't make it. That guy on the jet ski, he wasn't watching. I tried to jump back, but... He looked at me then, eyes shiny but steady. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I reached across the table and put my hand over his. You didn't do anything wrong. He nodded once, but his lip trembled. I just thought, maybe she didn't mean it bad. Maybe it was just a kiss. I didn't answer right away. Because what could I say to a 10-year-old who just discovered betrayal wrapped in the face of the person he called mom? After he went to lie down, I stood by the kitchen window for a long time, watching the garden that Elise had filled with expensive sculptures and drought-resistant plants. The perfect landscape for cocktail parties. All carefully arranged. Just like her. The words rattled in my head. He's not going to suspect anything. It'll be a surprise. I replayed every moment from the past 6 months, every cold glance, every unexplained absence, every time she left Tyler in someone else's care without explanation. I saw now what I didn't want to see before. This wasn't just an affair. This was strategy. There were only 2 possibilities. Either Elise was reckless or she was deliberate. And Elise was never reckless. I went to my office, locked the door, and pulled up the encrypted response from Amelia Ward, former MI6 analyst, the sharpest surveillance mind I ever worked with. Her reply had come in 2 days ago, but I hadn't opened it. Now I did. The attachment was labeled Darrow_Jasper_prior activity_14mo.pdf. I didn't read it yet. I just stared at the screen, the words of my son echoing in my mind. She told me to go. She said she didn't want to leave him alone. I closed the laptop and sat back in my chair. This wasn't just a crack in our family. This was a detonator. And Elise had already lit the fuse. Elise left early that Monday morning wearing one of her signature coats, something camel-colored and expensive. She kissed Tyler's forehead with the same staged warmth she used for photo ops. Then she turned to me, said, "I'll be at the gallery all day," and was gone. As soon as the front door clicked shut, I opened the laptop and dug into the file Amelia had sent. It was a 47-page dossier. No fluff. No speculation. Just data. Dates, logs, photos, transactions. Jasper Langley, full name, Jasper Emery Langley III. Former investment banker turned art dealer. Known for frequent appearances at high society events in Paris, Zurich, Milan. More importantly, known to Interpol for suspected laundering through a handful of shell nonprofits. His name appeared on one of Elise's foundation contractor filings. A shell company, Valair Holdings, was listed as providing logistics consulting to her art nonprofit. The payments started 14 months ago. Small at first. $5,000. Then 10. Then 20. Over a dozen wire transfers. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Liechtenstein. Elise had set up the access herself. Amelia's notes in the margin were clinical. Patterns consistent with staged embezzlement. Recipients aligned with known laundering networks. Subject E. Ren appears to be siphoning funds under false consultancy pretenses. I scrolled to the audio transcripts. Amelia had planted a listening device in Elise's study last week after my signal. The first file was timestamped the morning after Tyler's accident. Jasper's voice. "You're pushing the timeline too fast. Elise." Silas is distracted. This is the window. Once the foundation closes the Q2 books, we transfer, go clean. Jasper. And the kid. A pause. Elise. He's not part of this. Then softer, barely audible. He complicates things. Complicates. My hands gripped the sides of the chair until my knuckles went white. This wasn't just betrayal. This was orchestration. She was bleeding money from her own nonprofit and laying the groundwork to vanish, clean accounts, a new identity, and Jasper at her side. And Tyler? A complication. I closed the file and stared at the wall for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, no, the puzzle pieces clicked together too perfectly now, but because the reality was too heavy to carry in one breath. I had spent over a decade consulting global airlines on crisis scenarios. Fuel leaks at 30,000 feet. Mid-air decompressions. Threat matrix response systems. But nothing in my professional arsenal had prepared me to dismantle my own wife. So I turned back to the tools I did know. I called Amelia using the secure channel. "Begin phase 2, I said. "Legal, social, reputational." "You sure?" she asked. "This is a full suite. No return path." She made her choices, I said. Now the world needs to see them. We started quietly. First, forensic accountants. I hired a private Zurich firm through an old NATO contact. They began compiling Elise's foundation irregularities, cross-referencing Jasper's entities, building a legal net. Second, social architecture. Amelia reached out to a select circle of influential donors, patrons, and press contacts, people Elise relied on for credibility. All received discreet dossiers. No confrontation. Just facts. Just enough to trigger questions. Third, reputational exposure. A tech-savvy contact of Amelia's pushed a subtle narrative through a few well-positioned blogs, stories about questionable art foundation finances, anonymous leaks, public records of transactions. It didn't have to be loud. It just had to be consistent. Meanwhile, I maintained the facade. Played the calm husband, the grounded father. Tyler and I ate quiet dinners. Read in the evenings. I helped him with math homework and told him silly stories at bedtime. But behind every calm gesture, every steady breath, I was building a strategy with the precision of an airstrike. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about justice. For the son who'd almost died because his mother needed alone time with a man she was laundering money with. For the man she used as a front while she drained our lives from behind locked drawers. And for the life I had built. Every quiet, honest piece of it. Now marked for destruction by someone who once promised me forever. Let her gala happen. Let her shake hands and sip champagne. Because when the curtain dropped, Elise wouldn't just lose money. She'd lose everything. And this time there'd be no retreat. Only consequence. The gala was held at the Grand Belvedere Hotel in the center of Zurich, crystal chandeliers, velvet-covered walls, a guest list filled with diplomats, heirs, and legacy donors. Elise loved that place, called it timeless. She wore a silver sheath dress that night, custom-made, no doubt. Tyler stayed home with Amelia's trusted sitter. He didn't ask where I was going, just gave me a sleepy hug and said, "Be safe, Dad." I arrived early, dressed to blend in, sharp suit, calm face, invisible intentions. No one looked twice, not even Elise when I approached her near the floral arch, champagne glass in hand. She smiled, barely, like I was an old acquaintance, not her husband. "You came," she said, the same way someone might greet a former employee. "I never miss a finale," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered, but the smile held. She didn't know yet. The first blow came 30 minutes later. A donor, old money from Geneva, approached her near the podium, holding a phone out with an article already queued up. The headline was mild, just suspicious enough. Zurich Art Foundation's consultant tied to offshore irregularities. The article mentioned Valère Holdings. Jasper. Elise. No accusations. Just questions. By the time Elise read it, 5 more guests had seen the same link. She found me again near the silent auction table, her eyes flashing. "What the hell is this?" I tilted my head. "You said you wanted to be seen. Now you are." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You think you can humiliate me here? In front of my world?" "I'm not humiliating you," I said. "I'm offering you a deal." She laughed, tight and venomous. "You're bluffing." I pulled an envelope from my coat pocket, slid it across the table. Inside, detailed financial audit from Ward Analytics, sworn statements from 2 foundation employees, transfer receipts from Valère Holdings, and a courtesy copy of the report filed with Swiss regulators. Her hand hovered over the envelope like it might burn her. "If you walk away now," I said, "you keep your freedom. You disappear quietly. No trial. No headlines. I'll drop the formal complaint." "And if I don't?" she hissed. "Interpol starts looking at the Cayman trails. Jasper goes down. You go with him." I leaned closer, my voice steel. "But if you drag Tyler into this, if you let him get caught in the fallout, I'll make sure every parent at this gala hears the recordings. The ones where you call your son a complication." Her face drained of color. "I'll give you 24 hours to sign the resignation letter and wire transfer authorization to refund the misused funds back to the foundation. You leave the board. You lose your title. You walk." She stood frozen. Then she turned away without another word and disappeared into the crowd. But that wasn't the end. As she tried to regain control of the night, smiling, posing, sipping, Amelia's agents quietly seeded the final blow. A curated string of anonymous tips sent to a handful of key media outlets. An encrypted package delivered to the foundation's financial director. One quiet phone call to a former donor Elise had insulted last spring. By morning, the headlines had changed. Zurich Art Gala ends in scandal. Foundation leader resigns amid audit. Financial irregularities surface in Jasper Langley connection. By noon, Elisa's inbox was a graveyard. By sunset, she had been removed from the board. No farewell statement. No press conference. Just silence. That night, I stood in the garden outside our home, watching Tyler draw shapes on the patio with chalk. He didn't ask where Elise was. He didn't mention her at all. I think, in his own way, he'd already begun letting go. Inside the house, my phone buzzed. A message from Amelia. Phase 3 complete. Jasper's accounts flagged. Extradition review pending. You want full lockdown or slow burn? I stared at the message for a long moment. Both, I replied, because Elise wasn't the only one who'd gambled everything. And Jasper's reckoning was next. It happened on a Thursday evening. Tyler was upstairs finishing his book report, and I was in the study going over the latest from Amelia, screenshots of frozen accounts, a photo of Jasper at a private airstrip 2 days earlier, bags packed, jaw clenched. He hadn't made it far. Not with his name already on every customs watch list from Geneva to Dubai. I didn't expect him to show up in person. But when I heard the back door creak open, not knock, not ring, just open, I knew. I walked calmly down the hall and stepped into the kitchen. Jasper stood there like he owned the place. Same arrogant posture, same tailored coat, eyes cold but twitching at the edges. A man who had run out of exits. I came to talk, he said. Not here to cause trouble. You already did, I replied and locked the door behind me. He looked around, scanning the room like it was a chessboard. You've made a mistake, Silas. Dragging Elise into this. She wasn't the mastermind. No, I said. She was the leverage. You're the target. He smirked. What do you think this is, a spy film? You don't scare me. I don't need to, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. The screen lit up. I tapped play. Jasper's own voice echoed through the room, recorded last month during one of his late-night chats with Elise. He's got no idea. The kid's just a distraction. As soon as the transfer clears, we're gone. Then Elise's voice. Let him stew in that big empty house. He won't do anything. He's too used to being the hero. I watched Jasper's smirk fade. I kept going. We give it another 3 weeks, he said on the tape. He'll be too focused on recovery mode to notice. Besides, once the kid's in boarding school, it's clean sailing. I paused the audio. Jasper's face had gone pale. She was never going with you, I said. You were just her hammer. I was her safe. And now you're both exposed. He stepped forward, jaw tight. You think you've won something? All you've done is ruined your kid's mother. She did that herself, I said. And Tyler still has one parent left who gives a damn. That's when it changed. The tension in him snapped. He lunged. But I was already moving. I caught his wrist mid-swing and drove him backward, slamming him against the refrigerator. Before he could recover, 2 figures stepped out from the hallway behind me, Amelia's security men, dressed in plain clothes but built like statues. Mr. Langley once said, producing a small ID badge. You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy to commit financial crimes, and contributing to the endangerment of a minor. Zurich authorities will hold you pending international extradition, the other added. Your accounts are frozen. Your lawyer's already been notified. Jasper didn't fight. Not really. Not once he saw the gun holstered under the taller one's jacket. He just stood there, breathing hard, shaking his head like he still couldn't believe this was happening. You don't get to walk away from this, he growled at me. I leaned in. Neither do you. They cuffed him and walked him out the back, where a black car idled by the alley. It was quiet. No lights, no sirens. Just the dull thud of a door shutting and the slow drive toward accountability. I stood alone in the kitchen afterward, heart still steady, mind already moving to the next step. Tyler never came downstairs. But the next morning, he said something while we were packing his lunch. Dad? Yeah? Was that man last night? Was he the one Mom called family? I met his eyes. He was someone who made bad choices. And now he's facing the consequences. Tyler nodded, slow but certain. Good. I didn't say anything else. Because there was nothing left to say. The threat was gone. The damage had been done. And justice, quiet, complete, and irrevocable, had finally begun. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not physically. Just in the way people stared without expression. Attorneys, clerks, Elisa's new legal team. All calculated restraint. Elise sat at the defense table in a navy blazer, hands folded tightly, hair pinned back like a schoolteacher. Jasper wasn't there. He was already en route to a penal facility under international oversight, awaiting formal sentencing. The charges against Elise were straightforward. embezzlement of nonprofit funds, wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. Enough to put her away for 15 to 20. But she took the plea deal. 9 years in exchange for full cooperation. I sat in the back row when the judge read the terms. Elise never looked over. Never once glanced in my direction. But I could see the tension in her shoulders when the sentence was handed down. She'd expected another miracle. A loophole. A last-minute save. Not this time. Later that week, I watched the fallout ripple outward. Her name scrubbed from the Foundation's website. Invitations rescinded. Portraits removed from event recaps. Her social world, once a fortress of curated perfection, crumbled like wet plaster. One by one, the calls stopped coming. Donors. Patrons. Gallery owners. Even her closest allies went silent. She'd become untouchable in the worst possible way. As for Jasper, he didn't fare much better. He was sentenced to 15 years, no parole for the first 10. His charges included international financial conspiracy, identity fraud, and attempted endangerment of a minor. The latter was added after prosecutors reviewed the full recordings. That line, "he complicates things," played in court. And even the judge paused. The headlines didn't stay up long, but the damage was done. No more art shows. No more investment circles. No more invites to the Riviera. They were done. But justice didn't feel like victory. Not exactly. It felt like a door closing. And so I focused on the only thing that mattered, Tyler. I scaled back my consulting work. Declined contracts in Sydney, Tokyo, Sao Paulo. I kept only the Zurich firm and a handful of high-trust clients. Amelia helped set up a security review of our home, digital locks, monitored surveillance, encrypted communications. I didn't tell Tyler the details. Just that things were safer now. He bounced back slowly. More smiles, more color in his cheeks. He started drawing again, little comic strips about a boy and a hawk who flew over mountains, solving mysteries and saving people. He named the hawk Wren. I asked once if the boy had a name. He said, not yet. Maybe he didn't need one. Maybe he was just a boy finally learning he could breathe again. At night, we'd sit on the porch with hot chocolate, watching the city lights blink in the distance. One evening, Tyler asked, "Will she come back?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said no. She made choices. Now she lives with them. He nodded. Just once. And then he leaned his head against my arm and fell asleep. That was when I knew we'd survived. Not just physically. Not just legally. But soul deep. We'd walked through fire and come out changed. Burned maybe. But still standing. Still moving forward. Together. It's been 2 years since Elise and Jasper vanished from our lives, one into a federal prison cell, the other into whatever grim bureaucracy runs penal systems in Malta. I haven't spoken to either of them. I don't intend to. Tyler and I live now on the coast near Lisbon in a pale stucco house with blue shutters that faces the Atlantic. It's small but open, with a courtyard where we keep potted herbs and a lemon tree that leans just enough to brush the kitchen window. Amelia helped me find the place. Quiet, safe, untraceable. Not that we needed to hide anymore. But peace, I've learned, is worth choosing. Tyler's 13 now. All elbows and big shoes. He plays football after school and reads everything he can get his hands on. He's still quiet, still thoughtful. But there's a confidence in him that wasn't there before. Like he finally knows the ground beneath his feet won't disappear. He has friends. He laughs again. And when he sleeps, it's deep, without the flinching and murmurs that used to haunt his dreams. As for me, I run a smaller version of my consultancy, tight-knit, invitation only. I don't fly as often. No more overnight risk assessments in Dubai or 16-hour days parsing accident telemetry. These days, my job is measured. Local. Intentional. At night, after Tyler's gone to bed, I sometimes sit on the terrace with a glass of red and listen to the ocean drag itself over the rocks below. It's the only sound I need. No alarms. No plans. Just waves. Amelia still sends updates from time to time. Last week's message was short. Langley, no visitors in 14 months. Elise denied parole. Both socially dormant. Media cycle closed. No trace. They're ghosts now. Attached was a surveillance still of Elise in prison grays, her once blonde hair dulled and limp. Eyes hollow. Alone. I stared at it for maybe 5 seconds before deleting it. She's not our concern anymore. The only thing I care about now is this: Tyler has a future. The one we nearly lost. Yesterday, while we were eating grilled sardines on the porch, he asked me, "Do you think people like them ever change?" I didn't flinch. "They showed us who they are," I said. "We just made sure the world believed them." He smiled at that, just a flicker, and nodded. Later, after he went inside, I sat for a long while under the orange dusk. I thought about all the versions of our lives that might have been. The wreckage we walked through. The truths we uncovered. The pain we absorbed. And I realized something. This quiet, unremarkable peace is the rarest kind of victory. No applause. No headlines. Just two people who survived something meant to break them. Still here. Still standing. Still free.